So hello, good morning. I hope everyone enjoyed their tech break, water break, food break. My name is Dr. Adrian Huerta. I'm a researcher in the Pullias Center for Higher Education. The next panel that we're going to focus on is a practitioner perspective on digital tools and the implementation. As we heard in the first panel, it's really about breaking rules and pushing the boundaries, and there's so many built assumptions about technology, and especially with the so-called digital natives that we work with. So I think it's really important that we focus on the small and large-scale implementation of digital tools. So today I will be introducing Geri Coats. Oh, just say hi. Oh, or not.
Hello.
Okay. Matthew.
Hello.
Cheryl.
Hi there.
And Marie.
Hi.
Oh.
Hello. Hi.
So really quickly, if you can talk about the role on your name tags, what you picked. Yeah.
In order? Okay, I picked Digital Innovator. In part that was because I was running late and it was the first tag I saw and I was slipping in. Turn this one off. Okay, this one's off. Okay. So part of it was that I didn't spend a lot of time, but when I saw it, I decided I was going to take that. As Zoe mentioned, I work for Get Schooled. I was a co-founder of Get Schooled, and the idea behind Get Schooled was, hey, there are all these digital technologies out there. Is there any way we can use digital technology to close the college opportunity gap? And for the last 8 years, that's what we've been working on. And when you're working with young people in technology, you can never stand still. You can never think that, oh yeah, we figured it out. Oh gosh, we did it. As we all know, right? There's a new crop of students every year, and they're using technology different. They're thinking about education differently. They're interacting with their friends differently. And so every day is a new day at Get Schooled, and every day we have to be innovative. So that's why I chose that.
There it goes. So I'm Geri Coats. I chose Digital Innovator, and I think the reason for that is that in the classroom, I was always the nerdy teacher in the building, and I was always trying something new, that I was very often closing the doors and telling the kids to watch out for the principal while we did a text message thing, or we were doing this, keep an eye out. So very much ask for forgiveness rather than permission, and once it worked, I would call them in and say, hey, look at what we did. And then I left the classroom in order to work with other teachers in order to bring the technology into everybody's classroom, because we did what you exactly said, was we bought a whole lot of equipment without a plan. And the first year we went after that, it was an epic failure. So the next year they created the position that I have now, which is the technology coordinator at our site, where my job is to work with the teachers and the students in order to make the technology a learning tool and make that useful for everybody in the school.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Gonder. I'm the lead teacher for the Finance Academy at Foshay Learning Center. And I chose Hybrid Hero. When I first got invited to this forum, I did not really fully understand why I was selected. But then as I took a look back over, some of the things that I've done, I used to, before I became a teacher, I was a royalty accountant for Motown Records, and I tried to introduce them to Excel. They told me they didn't want to spend money on a program. I said you could save money in the long run. Then I thought about other things I've done, like introduce a digital stall evaluation form that the district, hence as a result, chose. I introduced a method for my students to contact me, and we could put on the website lesson plans, and teachers and students and parents could communicate online. And this was about 20 years ago. It was kind of a frowned upon, by my school, but I did it anyway. So I took all of those things I saw a need. I looked at things from an entrepreneurial viewpoint. So I think by the combination of my background in the real world, looking at needs from the perspective of students, teachers, parents, and using digital innovations, that's why I chose this hybrid hero tag.
Hi again. Thank you for coming out. My name is Matthew Waynee. I selected Digital Access Advocate. I'm the head of the Cinematic Arts Department at LAUSD, USC Media Arts and Engineering Magnet. We're right across the street from USC. We are a K through 12 campus. If you're familiar with 32nd Street, we share a campus with them. But 5 years ago, we had one film class and 8 point-and-shoot cameras. And since then, we've really been able to innovate, bring in 31 DSLR cameras. We have professional editing equipment, lighting equipment, sound equipment, where our kids now are able to actually use the technology and use their voice to bring their identities and their cultures to their projects. A couple things that I do with my kids to help them out getting into college. I make all my kids do digital portfolios, which is they're applying for college. A lot of the people that have been interviewed by say, oh, we haven't seen too many high school kids doing this. But it really lets them highlight the successes they've had over their 4 years. And really from day one, they really started thinking of themselves more as professionals. Oh, let me put a little bit more into this project, a little bit more into this activity because I want to make it portfolio worthy. And I still have kids now who are in college who still continue to use that to promote what they're doing, highlight that, and really use it as a tool to get them into college, into internships, into summer programs alike. So.
Awesome. We'll be okay. All right, so first question for you guys. What is a digital resource that you couldn't live without that enhanced your work and why? So again, what is a digital resource that you couldn't live without that enhanced your work and why?
Well, I'll go first. I found this program called Jupiter Grades. I introduced it to my school because I saw it was an innovative way to communicate with parents so that students and parents could see their grades online 24 hours a day. And it would make our lives as teachers much easier to keep students informed of what's happening in the classroom. It had so many wonderful features that even though LAUSD did not decide to use that program, they decided last year to use a similar program called Schoology to communicate with parents and have textbooks online and all of that. But just about every day, some of my students come up and say, we really miss Jupiter. So, but that is just one type of program, internet digital tool that I think really made my life a lot easier.
Thank you.
I can speak to this as well. For me, the question was one that hurt my brain because tools change. Jupiter Grades, Schoology, I'm really familiar with both of those. And we have brought in a system very similar at my school, a learning management system which puts everything online to where parents can see what's going on in class, they can see their students' work. And I think for me, the focus is always on what a tool does, what my goal is, rather than the actual tool, because I see tools change over the years. And Jupiter and Schoology, and like I said, we use Canvas, they all create that doorway for parents to come into the classroom, for people to collaborate and work together. The biggest tools for me that I think have been game changers have been communication and collaboration tools. Twitter was my gateway drug into technology. I have a connection to educators around the world. I have a really great professional learning network that I can ask questions of, I can get advice, I get feedback from at a moment's notice. But I also use other tools. I use Google Docs and I use Google Hangouts with a colleague of mine where I create a document and I send it to her in a Hangout really quick. I say, hey, can you take a look at this before I have it printed? And I can collaborate with people. I can do that at my campus. I can do it with somebody across the world. So I think being able to collaborate in real time with people is a huge, huge game changer in my world, but Twitter was a way for me to really get in.
I'll kind of jump off that, but using Google Drive in the classroom with my students has really been just changed everything for them. I teach all the media classes, so we're always doing large project PBLs. And so inevitably they break into groups of 3 or 4. First thing they do, all right, let's all get linked together into a team. So now we put our scripts up there, we put our edits, we can put all of our information. They can communicate. It never again is like, oh, so-and-so had it and they left it home and now we can't do any work today. It's like, oh, well, let's log in. You're all access together. Let's pull those resources so you can really do it. Handing stuff in, obviously going through and revising stuff and getting direct feedback just within the classroom. It really lets the kids communicate both in it and outside as they work on their projects.
So yeah, this question hurt my head as well. And so I have 2 answers. The first is really simple, which is simply Google, right? A great search engine tool. And interestingly enough, we just surveyed our students last week to ask them what's their favorite tool in the college access space. We did it as a way to kind of kick the tires on this report and just because we were interested. And their answer was Google. So we can develop all the tools we want, but at the end of the day, sometimes just a really good search engine makes all the difference. For our work and what we've done, I think the most revolutionary tool we've implemented of late has been Salesforce. And I really liked what someone said earlier about people who create tools for a general market and think oh, you can back end it into low-income students and it'll be fine, which is not true. And the same is true for Salesforce, but the reason why we decided to adopt it was I'm sure we're all oh my gosh, how is it that they know I still have that item in my shopping cart and they keep bugging me about buying it? They know exactly what I'm doing. And we thought, well, what if we could personalize communication at that level for the young people that we work with, because they see things in small chunks just the same way I think of buying shoes or whatever it is. And so being able to use a sophisticated CRM tool like a Salesforce can help guide young people through their college journey. But of course, you have to duct tape things together. I'm sure all of you guys would say the same things, whether it's a Google Docs or anything else in the work we do. It's not made for the work we do, but I think applying our expertise to some of these tools that people have spent a lot of money and time developing, you can actually yield some pretty good results with them.
Hello. Okay, there we go. Building off that, next question. How do you capitalize on what young people bring to the table in the work you do?
Well, I work in a high school, so I have a different population than a lot of people that are in this room, I think. And I think the best way to capitalize on the young people is to bring them into the table and into the conversation. I talk to 14, 15 to 18-year-olds every single day, and so they really guide my decisions. And my job, I take what they tell me, I take that back to the grown-ups who don't actually talk to them every day. I refer to my administrators as the grown-ups in the room. So I talk to the kid who tells me this doesn't work because of this, or I want it to do this. And then I bring that back up to the administrators when we're making the decisions on what we're going to buy and what software we're going to use. Because when they're offering this software, this makes me very sad because I'm a Google person, but I work at a Microsoft Office 365 school. Don't tell them I said that, but I'm a Google certified innovator and a Google certified trainer, and I work at an Office 365 school. But so when they're saying we're going to use this tool, and I have the kids telling me, but why can't I use Google Drive? I keep having to bring that to the table. This conversation came up this week, and so it has to keep being reiterated. How are you going to use this? Who is going to be the person using it? What are they going to do with it? That needs to be the driving factor rather than the person who doesn't sit with the kids and says, but I like it better.
One thing I find with a lot of my film projects and media projects, it allows the students to bring their voice and to really be able to bring that part of it, whether it's their identity, their community. We had an amazing project a couple of years ago where I had my film kids do a documentary, and kids are making films all the time, and I feel like documentaries are a really great way to go. Because let's face it, our kids, they're writing cliched stories, bad actors that their friends are in, and all that stuff. Those films don't really usually turn out too well, but a documentary, anybody can talk about their life, anybody can talk about what they're passionate about, and it comes off so authentic, it comes off so real. And those projects, most of my students who are winning awards and getting into film festivals, they tend to be documentaries. Anyway, a couple years ago, we decided with a group of our Girls Build LA team, they went out to 6 organizations in their communities that were helping other students like themselves, and they did documentaries about them, talking about their mission, what they were doing, interviewed students who were a part of it, and then we got together and we did a film festival. We reached out to a theater downtown, and they gave us their space for free, and we showed all of them. We invited all the organizations in. They set up their own tables. We had over 200 people show up. We sold out filled out every seat in the house. And again, the students felt connected. They were talking about places that were important to them, and they were really sharing that message with them. So again, like they say in Hollywood, you can always make something with pretty pictures, but what's the story? What's the real reason and mission behind it? And I think our kids already have, whether it's their tablets or their phones, or they already know how to film. Like, let's show them a way to do it more professionally, which then again will allow them to have more access getting to college, getting into these internships.
So we think about student voice and having students shape our work in many different ways. Because we work with young people, our core demo is 14 to 19. We need them in our offices. We have a lot of young people that work with us, but none of them are 14 to 19. They're all out of college. And so we have high school interns in our office all the time to help. And we need they're there to do work, but then we always just sort of attack, like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I think they're so surprised that we take what they say, and you can see it in the work that we do. So we like to have young people in our offices all the time. We also have ways for young people to share their voices or to see each other on our site. We have discussion boards where we have kids all over the country who are able to talk to one another. And it's really a way to, young people, you can get a pulse on what's happening in the country if you listen to young people. 3 years ago, I want to say it was now, we had 2 schools, one in Arizona and one in Central Ohio, who were competing against each other for a first prize. It was brutal between them. No, in a bad way. It was low-income white kids from Central Ohio versus Latino kids from Phoenix, Arizona. And everything that happened in the 2018 election, we saw in the spring of 2017 on those discussion boards. So if you listen to young people, you can feel the pain, and you can start to see social issues bubble up that mainstream media is not talking about. Listen to young people, and you get to see what's happening before media reports on it. They know what's happening. And then the other thing we do is we continuously survey our students. Sometimes I worry in the college access space, are we just marketers for four-year colleges? Are we helping kids reach their potential and reach their dreams? Or are we just pushing a four-year college product? And listening to young people about what their aspirations are and what they want and what their goals are, and making sure that we're actually supporting them and not marketing a product, I think is really, really important. And that's why we have to listen to them all the time.
Also, I think that by valuing what the students bring, showing them that we value their ideas, helps make our jobs as teachers easier, because as they see that their ideas are valued, they become more connected, they see connections, and they are able to produce, I think, better quality work. For example, we have an entrepreneurship program for our 10th graders, and it's assisted by the National Foundation for Teaching Entrepreneurship, NIFTY. And one of our students saw a problem in her world. She wanted to create a clothing line that spoke to her values, her culture, and so she created an upscale clothing line that discussed issues and social issues and historical factors. And her entrepreneurship project was selected for the national competition, and she went to New York to compete. So if her idea had not been valued, it may never have been viewed on a national level. And it is a business that she actually makes money from as a sophomore. Now she's a 10th grade junior. And so it is side business for her. So those kinds of valuing students' ideas, I think, are really important.
What I'm hearing a lot of, and it's something that has resonated with me for years, is the idea of audience. With students when they are able to do a film festival, when they're able to be part of an entrepreneurship project that gets outside of the school, the idea of audience and listening to kids, first of all, they tend to be shocked that somebody really is listening to them beyond their teacher, but it adds so much to their work and it brings them out of their shell. Audience was how I got into the Google Innovator Program, was bringing my students' work outside of the classroom. When students do things for their teacher, it's good enough. When they do something that goes beyond their teacher, when it's out there in the world, then they want it to be good, rather than good enough.
In the conversation. Hello. Okay. And the conversation that you guys are having really just lends to the next question of what strategies do you employ to make sure low-income students have access to digital resources?
Well, at my school, I know this is one that I thought quite a bit about, and it was a little bit different than thinking about audience and some more theoretical things, I guess. And I thought really practically. We went after a one-to-one program where we provided all of our students with a minimum level of technology. We started with a product that we don't really like very much anymore, didn't meet our needs. And we listened to the kids, we moved on, but we wanted to make sure everybody had a device that could do the things we wanted them to do. Not just their cell phone that some had a data plan, some didn't, some could do one thing, but they didn't all work on this program. So we made sure everybody had the same device. We worked on our infrastructure at school to make sure we had Wi-Fi at school, but that doesn't help when kids are away from school. So we do have some community partnerships where the library, we're in one city, but we have feeder schools. We have 7 different feeder schools that come into our high school. Some are from outside communities, and so at least one of those communities has a library where we fund the Wi-Fi. So the students can get access to Wi-Fi, strong, good, reliable Wi-Fi at the public libraries funded by our school. And then I know our school district is also working in partnership with the city. They jokingly refer to this as the Ring of Fire, but they're building a citywide Wi-Fi system to where low-income families can have Wi-Fi for free. And the hope is that those who can afford their own Wi-Fi won't bog it down, and that it will continue to remain free for those who need it and be able to have some access. That way we can have students who can access all of their content, and we're starting to move more and more things online. They have the device that can get them online, and so now we're working on making sure they have access to everything outside of school as well.
Do you have a bus that goes to Guadalupe?
We do have, our school buses go out to Guadalupe.
Is there Wi-Fi? I feel like you had.
We don't have Wi-Fi in the bus. That's the community where our school district provides Wi-Fi at the library. And we also provide it at the Santa Maria Library as well.
One thing we've had some success with, we've just written some grants. I've been a part of that. And over the last 3 years, we brought in close to $100,000. And I find focusing on low-income schools, low-income students, and technology is really where it comes to be. And so I've talked to different English teachers and math teachers like, oh, well, that doesn't really apply to me, but there are ways to get technology into all types of classrooms. Obviously, teaching film and media, that's a very clear connection, but I found that there's just a lot of grants out there to really help, at least the high school level, that population coming from low-income schools needing technology. And one thing I've done, as a teacher, I've already got enough stuff going on, running the department and stuff. I just kind of made the vow to myself, like over the summer, I write one grant and kind of find 5 or 6 different places I can send it out to. That I always have to tweak it a little bit here and there, but kind of focus on one thing. And again, we've had some success with that, being able to do that. Again, if you get something within your organization or your school, that can be a point person on that. There's definitely money out there to try to help our types of students, low-income students, with technology specifically and getting it into your classrooms.
Yeah, grants are so important. At our school, we have 3 academies, and the 3 academies are funded by California Partnership Academies. We just came back from Sacramento Wednesday, and we found out that this particular grant has become a line item, so it's kind of guaranteed funding for the next several years. Without that grant, we would not be able to provide a lot of the technology at our school that our students are privy to. So every academy has access to all kinds of technology, computers, laptops, iPads. We're able to provide tutoring after school as a result of our grant funding. And one issue in particular to me as an English teacher is knowing that from the data we see from statewide that many of our low-income students really do not always meet the requirements for reading and writing on the college level by the time they graduate from high school. So with the grant, we are able to provide some types of digital and internet tools to assist them with their reading and writing so that they become eligible for admission into college, and not only admission into college, but also to be able to write on the college level once they are, walk into the college first day of class. So some of those things include tools like Grammarly that students are able to, check their writing and see if there's any mistakes in their grammar and mechanics and get immediate feedback rather than waiting for a teacher to grade the paper. So some of my students, even former students at college, still try to use my Grammarly tools, but I had to cut them out because it got too expensive. But those kinds of things really kind of level the playing field if you have access to other tools that can assist students in that way.
So I think when Zoe was speaking this morning, she mentioned that so many kids don't have access to a computer at home. And in the survey that we did last week, we asked them, what's your favorite college access tool, and then how did you access that tool? 52% of the kids who responded do not have a computer at home. So more than half are not able to access these tools at home on a home computer. The majority of them use school, and then the others use their phones. And so when we think about how do you encourage, or how do you get students to adopt a tech tool, you have to think of two things. One, be cognizant of the school environment. So if you ever go to get schooled, you'll see the articles are really short, and there's a reason for that, because most times, kids do not have a half hour to sit in front of a computer and to explore. They have to be able to be like in and out, if you will. We work with a school in rural Oklahoma, and they let their kids get schooled when they're done with their schoolwork. So that's great, but they need to be able to do something meaningful in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. So really thinking not just like what all the information you have to give, but chunking it up in a time that a young person would be able to consume it. The second thing is to be thoughtful about mobile, and people mentioned that earlier. But that is where, if you're not in a school computer that you don't have long access to, you're going to be doing it on your mobile phone. And so, how can you navigate it effectively through mobile? And you definitely saw, I think, when we were working on this project with USC, there are more and more sites that are mobile optimized. But I think there's more work that can be done in that space as well.
Next question, and I think it really is at the heart of what we're talking about, is partnerships. So how have you developed partnerships that help amplify your work, and which ones were helpful? Like district, private, you were mentioning visiting the state and getting a line item for a grant. So if you guys can talk about that, please. And again, the question was, how have you developed partnerships that help amplify your work, and which ones were helpful?
Okay, well, with the Partnership Academies grant, we have to develop partnerships with business and community leaders. One of the first partnerships we developed was with an organization called Los Angeles Educational Partnership, and Danny Corwin really helped us out in the early days when I was first lead teacher of the academy. They really gave us insight into how to develop business partnerships. So some of the really helpful ones that we have developed include USC. We are in partnership with the School of Marshall School of Business and Leventhal School of Accounting. Our students as seniors are able to take a college level class at USC for credit. They have provided a lot of other wonderful summer programs for our students, and a part of our student population takes classes at USC from middle school to 12th grade. So USC is a wonderful partnership we've developed. Also, we've developed partnerships with banks and accounting firms and nonprofit community organizations, and their members serve as advisory board members for our academy. And one awesome thing that just happened this year in particular, we had 2 students that went through our program, were admitted to UC Berkeley. One of them was undocumented. They both graduated on time in 4 years. They were interned at Deloitte Consulting during the summer while they were at Berkeley, and they were recently hired at Deloitte just last year, and they have come back to serve as advisory board members for our academy. So they're giving back to their alma mater. So we're really excited about all the things, the innovative ideas that they bring to our academy. They serve as judges for our competitions. They serve as advisors, to keep us abreast of industry trends and how to make our curriculum more accessible and more relevant to what's happening in the real world, to help us develop innovative ideas to promote business and finance curriculum to our students. So these are just a few of the partnerships we've developed with community and industry.
We've had a number of great partnerships that have been point on sort of bringing together. We go to DreamWorks every year. We started off taking 4 or 5 kids back in our first year, and this year we were able to take 35 students there. They got to sit down, see how the whole pipeline process worked, different people getting up in front of them, discussing. We had lunch there, and 15 other artists sat down with them to really share what their journey was to get there. I know my first year we had one girl, she got accepted to go, and she's like, Mr. Waynee, I want to go into law and stuff like that. And I was like, well, at least check it out. You get to go to DreamWorks. And she went there, and 4 years later, she is now in her first year at LMU in their film school there. So really inspired her to do that. The other thing, it's great because a lot of the kids think, I can't draw. I don't know how to do it. It was like, there are so many jobs in animation specifically that are beyond that, from the coding to the development to the scheduling, stuff like that. We have a partnership with the LA Times where our kids can submit written stories or films to them, or a lot of our kids get published there throughout. It's like, how many people can say they've been published in the LA Times? It's a great thing to put on your college application when you're applying. We've got stuff with NBC Universal, and then some local organizations as well. The Ghetto Film School, which is amazing. It is a 30-month-long immersion into film. It's helped run by Fox Studios, where professionals come in. They learn, again, all through the summer, every Saturday during the school year. They help them with their ACT and SA prep. Their first summer, they actually get to go to NYU to take 4-week classes there to make a film. And their second summer, if they're selected, they get to go to a different continent and spend a $20,000 budget on one of their own films. We've had 10 of our students get accepted to that. And again, just really opens up these opportunities. It's all completely free for them. And again, it's our students really going out there, being willing to immerse themselves in what is such obviously a prevalent industry here in where we are. So.
How does anybody follow that? I was all excited. I connected with Zoe over a partnership through a grant, the California Academic Partnership Program, where our K-12 schools, actually 9 through 12 schools, were tasked to partner with community colleges and universities in the area. And so my answer is very related to that, which doesn't compare to DreamWorks or NYU. But we built a partnership with both the community college, with the University of California, Santa Barbara, and then with Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, which is right near us. And we have really developed these programs to help our students. We have somebody from UCSB through this partnership that works on our campus, 12 months a year actually, so she's there more than the teachers are. And she runs with cohorts. She works with a cohort model where she has specific programs that go to the cohort students. However, if they don't fill up the program, so let's say she's doing a college tour to UCSB and she has 50 seats, 30 go to the cohort, it opens up to the entire student body and anybody is then allowed to go. So we have her on campus all the time and working with different grade levels and her students and our entire student population. We've also built a really strong partnership with the community college. One that we did not have before, which was really ridiculous. About 50% of our students who graduate and go on to college go through this community college before they end up at a four-year university. And so we have this really great program with them and their guidance staff where they now come to our students, they come to our site, they go out to, like Zoe was saying, we have a community that's about 15 miles out of town, which is very isolated. They don't, many of the people don't have transportation into town. It's a very low poverty area, it's Spanish speaking. They take their entire counseling team out to that community and they do an entire parent night where they register the students on the spot. So they never have to make it onto the college campus, which is very intimidating to some of the families. That has increased our Hispanic and Latino enrollment rate at that community college. I think the number was 38% last year. It was a huge increase because it went to them. We have one of the counselors on campus. We have a direct line of communication to Cal Poly San Luis now. That one's a little bit weaker, but what we have gained from that is that we have someone we can call for help. We have no idea what to do in this situation. How do we navigate it? And if the person who is our direct line can't answer it, she knows who can. So we have these partnerships with these 3 schools right now that benefit our students because those are the schools our students go to.
So I just want to give an example. So we mentioned our campaign, We Are the Dream, that we launched in early February, and I think it's a great example of partnerships and how you think about them. So we obviously, like probably most of you, serve a lot of undocumented students, and they text us in a lot, all asking about money for college, how can they go for college, etc. And we had resources on our site, but we thought, well, why don't we just aggregate them and put them all in one place? And we then said, well, that seems like a good idea, but we don't want to do something that somebody else who knows more than we do is already doing. So we had the idea, and then the next thing we did was reach out to organizations that are in this space that are like United We Dream, that work in it every single day. We're an education organization that's kind of looping this in. So are we adding value? So like understand what value you have and how you can already add value to a space. So we reached out to a few of them and said, did you think this is worth it? They said, oh my gosh, yes, we wish that existed. We need something like that. Okay, great. So then we did our part. We were really focused on the California DREAM Act application deadline, which was March 2nd. This was early February. We had heard from our partners up at the Student Aid Commission that, again, applications are way down given the political environment. So we were like, we have to get this out. So then we work with somebody who works with French Montana, who is a hip hop star, if you guys know him, and he is an immigrant, and this is an issue that matters to him. He wanted to get involved. Okay, great. Like you can bring something we can't bring. You have that platform. So now we have the advocates who are involved. We have our digital platform, French Montana. Oh my gosh, like that guy's on a whole different schedule than the rest of us, And he wanted to shoot a PSA. I'm like, okay, but look, March 2nd's the deadline. Like I know you were in the recordings, whatever you're doing. Can you please get this shot? And I literally was like, forget it. I'm going to go out without him. I don't have time for this. No, wait, Marie, wait. So finally, I think like in the middle of the night, he shot his PSA. And so this is partnerships. Like sometimes you have to wait for the other person, and sometimes it's worth it to wait. And my colleagues like, Marie, if you wait for him, it's going to be that much bigger. Well, it launched in Rolling Stone on the Rolling Stone digital site with French Montana. Honestly, they would not have known about us if it wasn't for him. And so sometimes when you're dealing with these partnerships, finding these folks and then waiting for them to be ready makes a difference as well, because he can add so much more than we can add. So now we have three pieces. We have the sizzle, we have the experts, and we have us. And then just this last, yesterday, we had well over 100 fraternities and sororities on college campuses across the country use the hashtag #WeAreTheDream to tell undocumented students, we want you here. Come here. College is for you. And so if you just go to Instagram and look at that, you can see that. And so once you get going, it's to bring in other partners who can make the work that you're doing so much greater than you could yourself. And I think in all of these, it's recognizing, like, you can't do everything alone. The power comes in collaboration and trusting and creating this group of trusting people that can make what you're doing alone so much greater than when you bring others in.
Wow, that was really beautiful to hear that last part, especially about French Montana and having that platform to inspire more undocumented students to go to college. And then I think this is kind of on the flip side of, and this is possibly the last question. Tell us about a time where when a tech intervention didn't work, and how did you know it didn't work? We've heard a lot about all the positive stuff, but I think it's important for us to also acknowledge the ugly side of it.
I can go. I've with quite a few failures. No, we years ago we had this idea with MTV, and I actually think they got the idea from a student, as I recall. So it's MTV Gets Schooled and the College Board, and the idea was how to make it easier to figure out how to pay for college. And MTV literally did a contest with students to get ideas from them. So we did the listen part, which is how we started. And one of the students' ideas was to use Facebook or social media to aggregate information. They said, look, we're already sharing so much about ourselves on Facebook. Why can't you then just take all that data and put it into like scholarship applications so we don't have to keep filling out all our data? Long story short, I'm sure the tech tool at the end of the day wasn't exactly what she had envisioned, but it didn't work. And I'll tell you why. Because students do not want to share their personal information about what scholarships they're applying to on social media. And so really understanding, so even though that one student had the idea and we were like, oh, that's cool, it's got social involved, it didn't work. And so I think, but we still have a great scholarship search tool. It's just not connected to Facebook anymore. So I think someone said that in the last panel too, like learn from your mistakes, recover, and you'll probably be better off after.
I'll give you one, and it's not my failure. So I have had lots of failures in teaching with technology. It's just part of the way it goes. You try something and it doesn't work the way you envision it. So I could enumerate on lots of those. But the big one that I can really think of is when our school district decided to go one-to-one. And like I said, they bought a whole bunch of equipment. And the failure in this one, and I remember hearing this very clearly, just give it to them. They know what to do with them. Just let them take them home. They'll become one with them. And we handed out, I don't even remember how many, if we did our whole student body, it would be ridiculous. But we handed out thousands of devices in May for our students to take home over the summer and get acquainted with them. Yeah, a lot didn't come back in August. One, this is the funniest story I know of. We had somebody contact us at the school district, not me directly. They had bought one on eBay, and after it became bricked with our security software because it was stolen, they wanted us to refund their money. And we were like, no, you bought stolen property. Can you mail it back, please? But that idea, and this is a big deal to me. The term digital natives, I am not a fan of that term at all. Students know how to post things on Instagram. They know how to take pictures. They know how to share with their friends. They know how to be social, and they have turned that tool into a technology piece. However, knowing how to do things for school, knowing how to be professional, those are things we still need to teach them. They don't know that just natively because they were born after VCRs. That doesn't make a difference. So that idea, and that one came crashing crashing down on our school district, that they would just become one with their devices and it would just magically all work. We didn't talk about curriculum, we didn't talk about pedagogy, we didn't talk about any of those things beforehand. And then they were like, oh, whoops, what do we do now? So that was a huge failure. Granted, I benefited, my job came out of that failure. That's why I like to talk about that.
Well, I can totally relate to that because I agree. I've had lots of failures, but one thing that is really preeminent in my mind right now is something that happened yesterday. Well, we're going through a WASC review at our school. We just finished an IB review. So the district decided to update all the passwords this week. So our students were not able to log into Schoology where their online textbooks were. In addition to that, they updated the Wi-Fi, so a lot of the devices could not connect anymore. And so yesterday, the principal decided to come to my classroom to do an observation. The students were trying to log into their online textbooks. So needless to say, I'm very happy to be here today.
Okay. One thing I'd like to share is not necessarily in my classroom directly, but I see my students get affected to it. In our earlier panel, talked about, computer science, and computer science needs to be a certain thing, and that is true. And a computer science class should not just be typing, should not just be Word. But our students still need to learn how to type. They still need to learn Word because our testing is going to computers, and if you've got all the knowledge, you've got the eloquence to type it, and you are pecking and pecking and pecking, then a kid who knows how to type is just going to have that advantage and have that ability to do that. I've had a junior walk in my class and say, Mr. Waynee, how do I print this document? And I held back and I was like, oh, I thought you were, I didn't say this. I was like, oh, I thought they were joking, but they weren't joking. And like, how are they a junior and not know how to print a document? Again, those basic skills, and maybe that happens at the 6th grade level, maybe that happens earlier before they get to the high school, computer science class and stuff, but those basic things also limit our students' access to college, to scholarships, to resources, especially as everything else is moving more technical, more digital. They need to know how to type, they need to know how to do those basic things at some point in their curriculum before they get to the computer science classes.
Okay, thank you so much. Let's please give our panel a round of applause.